Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per Salvador Rodriguez, otherwise known as Chava, ESPN, for a world championship at 17 years old. Camila Zamorano of Mexico will try to become the youngest world champion in history when she competes in the interim for the interim WBC title in the minimum weight division June 14th in Sonora at 17 versus the former world champion Mika Iwakawa of Japan, who sports a professional record of 13 wins with 7 losses, 1 draw, 4 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 21 professional bouts, to young Camila, who sports an unblemished record of 11 wins with no losses, no draws, 1 recorded knockout, 17 years old, and a promising career ahead of her that she's already paired up with a major promotional outfit south of the border in Zenfer Promotions, which could be used as a segue to fight on a Top Rank, for example, who does a lot of business with Zenfer. They have a great working relationship. We know that Top Rank is still signing female fighters, female talent. They just signed the unbeaten up-and-comer Basaldua Perla, who just made her Top Rank debut on the undercard of Navarrete versus Suarez. Because they still are signing female fighters, the door is open for young Camila to one day box on one of their shows. She was last in action earlier this year in January against Jocelyn Perez, who she beat by unanimous decision over 8 rounds. What about the bit of her being the youngest world champion? Well, she is 17 years old, but fighting for an interim world title is not the same as fighting for a full world title. So when they say that, it's largely ceremonial. This contest is supposed to be going down in the atom weight division. At atom weight, there is but one champion, undisputed champion of Germany, Tina Ruprecht, who right now, I really don't think Camila is ready for. So she can fight for that interim title, but she better not try to challenge Tina for the undisputed crown. She's nowhere near ready for a fight like that. That would be disaster. She still needs to amass a lot, and I mean a lot of professional experience. She can't possibly know all there is to know at only 17 years old with 11 professional bouts. She has a lot of height and a lot of length for these weights, regularly toggling from atom weight up to minimum. And you have to remember that she's only 17 years old, so her body is still growing and still filling out to where one day she could campaign at light fly, maybe even as high as super fly, because she has the frame to carry the weight. And the power will come. She's not as strong now as she will be 2 years from now, 3, 4. I think that Zenfer Promotions has a winner in young Camila, and Top Rank could do a lot worse than to add her to their stable of Valkyries or Matchroom, Eddie Hearn. By now, Eddie Hearn has to know the relevance of the Mexican fighter in the American market, the Mexican national, that Mexican boxing fans move the needle. In this country, they are fiercely loyal. It only takes the right fighter to galvanize them, to get that audience to therefore get behind them, who she's fighting. Former champion Mika Iwakawa, 41 years old. It's a good acid test, facing a former champion after only 11 professional bouts. There are some risks, but I trust that Camila can win a points decision. Mika has lost to a lot of fighters already over the years, 7 losses total, to where I think young Camila can handle this assignment and win a points decision, secure that WBC interim title, though whether or not she's going to use that to challenge the actual champion at this weight, I really don't think so. It would be foolhardy to put a young fighter like Camila in that situation in the ring with Tina. Tina has way too much experience for her, too many tools. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they just want to see if Camila is good enough to get in position to fight for a title, and once she's there, she will likely make defenses of the interim title instead of using it as a segue to fight for the full one. That's what I expect. Camila Zamorano on points is the pick. Men's super middleweight news. Christian Mbilli vows Sulecki spectacle to outshine Canelo's lackluster performance opposite the ring, then unbeaten William Skull, IBF champion. You never would have thought that fight was for the undisputed super middleweight crown based on the reception that it got. Undefeated Christian Mbilli is on the cusp of a super middleweight world title shot, but first, the Montreal-based fighter must navigate a tricky test against Mbilli Sulecki on June 27th in Quebec City. Born in the Cameroonian capital of Yaoundé.
Is that how you say that?
That's how I said it. Mbilli, 28-0 with 23 KOs, moved to France, aged 11, and went on to represent the tricolor flag of his new homeland at the Rio 2016 Olympics, but lost out to eventual gold medalist Arlen Lopez in the quarterfinals. The following year, Mbilli moved to Canada to work under Artur Beterbeef's trainer, Mark Ramsey, and since then, Solid has not looked back, becoming one of Canada's most popular fighters, whilst maintaining an unbeaten record and climbing up the ranks. Mbilli has now reached crunch time in his career, with this year set to be a pivotal period for the 30-year-old, who still remains in search of the breakthrough win that will make fans around the world sit up and take notice. Mbilli had been scheduled for an all-French showdown with fellow undefeated contender Kevin Lele Sajo before the clash was cancelled due to reported financial issues. The WBC then ordered Mbilli to take on the highly rated Diego Pacheco in an intriguing matchup for the sanctioning body's vacant interim title, which would see the winner recognized as a worthy world title challenger. Pacheco has since decided to withdraw from that contest and swerve a scrap with Mbilli, a move which Mbilli admitted had frustrated him when he recently spoke with Boxing News. To tell the whole story, Diego's already ranked very high with WBO. The nature of the dispute was the Mbilli people wanted it in Canada and the Pacheco people wanted it here. They couldn't come to an agreement. And because Diego's already got a top spot with the WBO, he decided to withdraw and schedule a fight with Danger Man Maga Makumbi. It's going to be on the undercard of Bam versus Kafu, leaving Christian Mbilli to contend with Poland's own Mbilli Sulecki. I am a little bit frustrated, but you know, it is boxing. In boxing, it is very difficult to have big fights in the fights that you want. But I don't care. I have a good team who is working very hard for me. My team have made this fight happen with Sulecki for the WBC interim, and I am happy to have this fight on June 27. Stepping up to the plate is Mbilli Sulecki, 33-3 with 13 knockouts, who will attempt to hand Mbilli a first career defeat and put himself in line for a second world title shot. In June of 2019, the Warsaw Battler lost out to WBO champion Demetrius Andrade. That was at middleweight. He's campaigning as a super middleweight now. Sulecki will need to improve. On his visit back to North America, last year, he suffered a first stoppage defeat, a performance which Mbilli does not believe that he must better, despite claiming to be the best fighter that Sulecki has faced. I don't have any pressure to outdo Pacheco's performance. In this fight, the only pressure that I have is to make a good fight, to bring a big show for boxing fans. Every fight right now is important. And this fighter has a good style. He, Sulecki, is a very good fighter, and I think that he is going to help me push myself and become a better boxer. For me, I think that I am the best boxer that he will have fought. He's fought Danny Jacobs, Demetrius Andrade, Diego Pacheco, all of which beat him. But I think that I am the best. I am going to show this on June 27. Whilst confident of a statement win, Mbilli recognizes the dangers that Sulecki brings to the table and explained that his goal is to entertain as well as triumph. He is very risky. He is very tough. And he puts a lot of pressure on, Mbilli said. He can be sneaky too. I think that I have to be very careful because he can box too, and he can put pressure on. I don't know the strategy that he's going to bring to the ring, but I think that I have to be very careful with this fight. I want to give a boxing show to the fans. I want to give them a very big show and a good fight. I don't want my fight to be like the last fight of Canelo against William Skull. What does he mean that Sulecki puts the pressure on? No, he doesn't. Every single time I've seen Sulecki in action, he's been the boxer, the mover, the jabber, and that's what he's good at. He's not a pressure guy.
Christian would be the pressure fighter, the pressure guy.
So with those things in mind, and what I think is going to be Sulecki's strategy, he's going to move and punch, he's going to hang back, because Christian is likely the one that's going to come forward. Sulecki's going to try to create distance, and Christian is going to try to close it. Victory for Mbilli would not only earn him the WBC interim title, but also the mandatory challenger position for the winner of September's undisputed title fight between Canelo and Terence Crawford, should Canelo come out on top. Mbilli maintained that his ultimate goal is to become world champion, but promised a spectacular performance if he must go through Canelo to achieve it. I think that Canelo will win this fight. He predicted Canelo is too big, and I don't know how Crawford is right now, but I think that is too much for Crawford to go up 2 weight classes. Right now, the number one thing is, I want to be a world champion, and number 2 is, I want to be the best in the division. If Canelo gives me my chance, then I would be very happy to beat him. If he leaves the WBC, then that is good. But right now, I want to be number 1, and I also want Canelo. I'm going to keep quiet about my strategy to beat Canelo, but of course, it would be more spectacular than his last fight with Skull.
A few passing thoughts.
He's not wrong, you know. A fight between Christian and Canelo would be a hell of a lot more entertaining than what we saw with William, because Christian ain't no sugarfoot fighter. He ain't no outside cutie pie. He's a mid-range to inside brawler, mauler, pressure fighter. And his style, with Canelo's, makes for a fan-friendly fight. But fighting Canelo is contingent upon a few things, not just one.
Obviously, Christian has to beat Messias Sulecki, but Canelo must also beat Terence Crawford. And I don't know that he's going to.
Provided he does, there's still a caveat. Remember, this is the WBC. They're not going to strip Canelo of a title to then hand it over to Christian Mbilli. They didn't do that for David Benavidez, and they're not going to do that for Christian. Ultimately, landing a Canelo-Alvarez fight, it's not up to them. It's up to Canelo.
And the World Boxing Council will stand idly by, making Christian wait for as long as Canelo wants him to wait. That's reality.
There is talk of Canelo Alvarez facing Hamza Shiraz if Hamza beats Edgar Berlanga in New York. There's also talk of Canelo facing Chris Eubank Jr. in the coming year. I like a Christian Mbilli fight more than either of those fights. And I do think that Christian is more adept to the task than those fighters are.
Because he has a lot more time at this weight than either Hamza Shiraz or Chris Eubank Jr.
But didn't Chris used to fight as a super middleweight?
Some years ago he did, but most of Chris's career has actually been spent in the middleweight division, and that's where he is now.
I like a Christian Mbilli fight with Canelo more than either of those fights. I could actually go for that because stylistically, it makes for fireworks. Christian is the kind of guy that's going to force you to fight and force you to respond. Force Canelo to put his counterpunching on display. Canelo doesn't have to worry about chasing him around the ring for 36 minutes, as Christian will be the one that gives chase, and Canelo will be forced to oblige him. That is a better fight for more reasons than one than what is on the table.
I expect Christian to beat Messias Sulecki, but as far as him fighting Canelo, I reiterate, that's up to Canelo.
Men's Cruiserweight news. Eddie Hearn is confident in delivering Jai Opetaia versus Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. Matchroom Boxing promoter Eddie Hearn remains determined to deliver a unification showdown for Jai Opetaia, potentially leaving YouTube star Jake Paul scratching around for a world title shot. A mouth-watering cruiserweight clash between the Aussie and unified world champion Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez has naturally been muted, but only now, with their schedules suddenly aligning, does it appear likely to materialize. Opetaia, 27-0 with 21 KOs, made a successful defense of his IBF and Ring Magazine titles in January, enjoying every second of his battle with David Naika before halting proceedings with a 4th-round finish. And sure enough, the hard-hitting technician will look to extend his ruthless surge in equally emphatic fashion when he squares off against Claudio Cuello on June 8th, also in Australia.
It's about time that he started fighting there again. because the only fights that should draw him out of his native Australia and that hometown audience, well, it should be the really big fights, the unification matches.
But the rest of the time, he needs to be there in Australia. He needs to be fighting in front of that audience and building his brand. He is one of the most exciting fighters, not just in Aussie boxing, but in world boxing. He is, of course, widely expected to do just that with Sequeiro, an unbeaten but largely unproven challenger, sharpening the 29-year-old's tools ahead of a potential unification. Ramirez, 47-1 with 30 knockouts, meanwhile, looks to retain his WBA and WBO baubles on June 28th after dethroning Chris Billum-Smith with a comprehensive unanimous decision victory back in November. The Mexican will collide with seasoned operator Uniel Dorticos on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez, with Ramirez's promoter, Golden Boy boss, Oscar De La Hoya, even teasing at a bizarre matchup between the 33-year-old and Jake Paul. To hopefully save us from witnessing that possible car crash, Hearn seemingly remains confident in shoehorning Opetaia's name back into the mix. But in order for the eagerly anticipated unification bout to take place, it is likely that boxing paymaster Turki Al-Sheikh would, as he so often does, need to reach deep into his pocket.
That does not guarantee that this fight happens.
Al-Sheikh knows that's the best fight in a division, Hearn told Boxing News. He's put a lot of work into Opetaia. Zerto's been at Riyadh's season cards as well. If they both win their respective fights, I expect them to fight each other. Obviously, you've got WBC World Champion Badu Jack as well, and I want to see Jai become undisputed champion. Eddie doesn't know that this fight is going to get made. What he knows is that Turkey is going to try to make it, like he tried to make Gervonta Davis versus Devin Haney, but no dice.
And here you have Oscar De La Hoya that promotes Zerto throwing his name in the hat for a Jake Paul fight.
Al Heyman.
Al Heyman, ready to work with him.
Really? Let's go.
Let's go.
What fights could Oscar and Al Heyman work on together? Dan Canobio said it. This time it's not just me.
Zerto versus Benavidez comes to mind. We know that Team Benavidez has mentioned this fight several times already.
And Oscar is floating the idea of a Zerto Ramirez versus Jake Paul fight. I don't expect Jake Paul to take it, but the fact that Oscar's putting that out there, it accents that they're not committed to a Jai Opetaia fight, because if they were, then that's the guy he would have brought up.
Even if Turkey wants the fight, and he's willing to put up big money to do it, it's up to Zerto to take it, and Zerto could always turn it down to fight an old man, an aging champion in Badu Jack, or a guy moving up in David Benavidez.
So I'm sorry, Eddie, but I don't know that this fight is going to happen next.